And she is joining us right now. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great. This is my very first Instagram Live.
That is exciting. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. I can't tell you what an amazing resource you have been for actors throughout this. I honestly just learned about you through the amazing podcast interview you did with Audrey.
Oh, yes.
I was just like blown away by your words of wisdom and just the way that you give such incredible concrete advice for actors and artists. So,
well, thank you. I mean, it's my community, right? I'm an actor as well, and I just feel like we all have to really work together all the time, but most certainly now.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of people, there's a lot of questions that people are eager to ask. And by the way, Instagram kicks us off after an hour. So I'll make sure to let you know when that countdown is coming so we don't get cut off. Okay. But the last time that I heard you speak, that was before a lot of new financial measures were taken to help people out. I think that was before the CARES Act. That was before, the increase in unemployment. But there's still a lot of uncertainty there, especially in our community, even with talks of like a new CARES 2 Act. So maybe we can talk about some of the things that we do know about, maybe with like the stimulus check, that went out. I know they're trying to do another one.
Yeah. So, nothing has been decided in terms of additional funds. And truthfully, many in our community are still waiting to get those initial funds.
Yes.
And the only thing that I can say is that we have to do our best to breathe and to keep trying, for everybody who is still trying to connect with unemployment. Essentially, most of us are going to qualify for the $1,200 stimulus check, right? Mm. And most of us should in some way qualify, if not for traditional unemployment, then for the pandemic unemployment assistance, right? So there are essentially two tracks, and people just have to figure out which one they fall in. But the good news, Romani, is that they have added, and I believe, I haven't heard of any states that have not opted in to add an additional $600 a week to whatever you qualify for, whatever base you qualify for in unemployment, or whatever base you qualify for in the pandemic unemployment assistance, that until July 25th, they are committing to adding an additional $600 a week.
July 25th is just around the corner. I know a lot of people are like, eek.
But one of the things I just need to say, right, guys, is I try to focus us on the immediate moment, right, with an eye to the future.
Yeah.
So what I am getting everybody in our community to do is we want to be thinking about our needs through the end of 2020. I feel like, right? We want to know clearly what gets me through in terms of a number through now to the end of the year. Okay. But then we start calculating only what we can count on in this moment. And so what we can count on in this moment is that extra money through July 25th. Maybe it'll be extended, but let's just deal with what we know now.
Absolutely. And you may not have the answer to this because I know each state is different, but do you know kind of like a generalization of what someone would qualify for EDD versus PUA, meaning unemployment versus, the pandemic insurance, like where someone falls into that?
I really don't. And there are generalities, right? So I believe the sort of lowest amount that we can qualify for in unemployment is like $47 a week, right? The maximum that you can qualify for in unemployment is $450. So on the unemployment track, the minimum would appear to be $647,
right,
until July 25th at this point, and then $47 on, right, until your 39 weeks have expired. Now, in terms of the PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, I've done a little research. If you look online, they're basically saying there's like an average minimum amount. It appears to be slightly higher than unemployment when you look online, but since you can only be one track or the other track, I don't really sort of see how that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to people who are really, desperate for cash right now and they're filing for unemployment and they decide to not withhold the tax money? Do you think that's an okay idea?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like, all bets are off now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, right? So no one is ever going to be like, yay, let's go get into debt. And right now, we have to do what we need to do to survive, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely want people looking at, like, right now, there's a hold on evictions, right? So we need to, this is not something that we want to be making a decision we want to be making cavalierly, right? Because obviously, if we don't pay our rent, that affects our landlord. But we need to really be looking at where we are right now and be in open and honest communication with our landlords. So I know people who have let their landlords know they're unable to pay. I know people who have, in conversation, decided I'll pay half for now, or I'll pay a quarter for now. So what we need to do is we need to be calling all of our bills and seeing what providers are willing to do for us to help during this time. But once I have clarity, right, on what the bills are that I have to pay to keep my lights on, to keep my internet, right? Connectivity right now is essential. Obviously, to keep food on the table, to keep a roof over my head. Once I'm clear on all of those things, then yes, if I need to borrow, yes, get your full unemployment amount. Later, guys, we'll band together and we'll start making plans to clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up, just the way we always do.
Right. Because I assume if this goes on for a while and people are not withholding their taxes, that accumulates towards something that you owe in the end. But I assume that there will be a way to pay that back in installments.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Absolutely. Right. So the other thing I'm saying, Romani, is let's say that right now, I mean, we're in this situation. Yep. We know that we have a tax bill, right? We know that. And I have the money in savings to pay the taxes, but I will not be paying those taxes unless we have certainty by July 15th about where we are. If I don't, I will file my return. I will absolutely acknowledge that I owe this money, and I will finance that with the IRS.
Yeah.
Right? Because I need to hold on to everything that I have. We all need to hold on to everything. And then again, if everything starts going again and income starts coming in, then we will figure out our debt plans and we will address those as aggressively as makes sense.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think it's just we need to, until we start think about, what we owe and things like that, we need to have some sort of idea on what our future looks like. And we just don't have that right now. I think that's great advice. Do you know anything, and it's okay if you don't, about the people who maybe haven't gotten that stimulus check or maybe didn't get the right amount? Is that there's been some speculation in terms of we're going to mark that on our taxes for next year and we'll get that back in like 2021. Or is there something that people can do now that you know of?
That I don't. In this past week, I know there was a moment where they were saying if you haven't yet received your stimulus check, that they gave a window to go online and update your deposit information. But I believe that window closed. So at this point, if you're not signed up for direct deposit, I think you're just waiting for a check to be mailed. If you're getting incorrect amounts, which I assume would mean that basically the IRS, you feel the IRS thinks you earned more money in 2019 than you in fact earned, addressed.
Well, do you suggest people who haven't filed their 2019 taxes yet because it's been extended to get on that to accurately give the IRS their information for when and if that next CARES?
Right. I'm sorry. Because yes, you're correct. So they based the stimulus check on the 2018 earnings. I'm sorry. But yes, right. I do believe if you're in a position to file your 2019 return, you should file your 2019 return, right? Because we want them to have the information necessary as more help hopefully becomes available. But again, guys, I just want to make sure everyone's clear. If you file and you owe, let's not pay that now.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that happened to me. Like we have been busy with 2 little ones at home. And so we took that extension and ran with it in terms of like, we just don't have time to do this right now. We'll get to it before the deadline. But I had a baby in 2019 and they didn't know that because I didn't file yet. And so I was down. So that is good to know that if there is a next one, we should kind of get on that and that'll reflect.
Because then obviously you would want, congratulations, by the way, but you would want the extra money for the new.
Absolutely. So say you did get your money. And say an actor is reliant upon unemployment for their income and they got their stimulus check. I know you were kind of saying they should hold on to as much money as possible. So then would you prioritize that stimulus check going straight to a savings account versus paying off debt?
Yes. Right. Okay. So right now, again, I basically would be encouraging us all to be paying the minimums on our debt. So we ideally don't want anything going into default, right? Now, a lot of people are having success reaching out directly to the credit card companies to see what plans they have in place for us during this crisis. And I want everybody to really push, right? Like, don't take the first answer necessarily as the answer, right? Call back, get a different associate to help you. We're not finding that any of the credit cards have come out with like, this is our official policy. It does seem to be very individualized. And if I have not been a great customer, if I've always been late and I've been overdrawn, they might not be as willing to help. But if I've been a good customer, I've always paid my bill on time, then really what I want to know is, are they waiving minimums for a month on a month-by-month basis? Some of them are. Are they willing to freeze interest? Some of them are, right? So just getting clear, what do I have to pay to keep my account in good standing? But I don't want anyone taking their $1,200 and sending it straight to the credit card. Now, the only you'd have to do a little bit of math for yourself, right? Because the only thing that might make sense is if I'm clear that over the next few months, for instance, I am going to use that $1,200 to sort of cover my groceries, right?
Right.
Well, then maybe I do send the $1,200 to my credit card, and then I use the credit card to buy the groceries over the next couple of months, right?
Right.
So that I sort of pay it off so that I'm not incurring that much interest, and then I use it bit by bit over the next couple of months. But I definitely want us to be clear on what reserves we need, on what can't be paid for with a credit card.
Right. So talking more about debt and credit cards, and talking about getting maybe a credit increase or a personal line of credit or a second mortgage or even a HELOC, a home equity line.
A home equity line of credit.
Right. So say someone has access to all of those opportunities. My question would be, what would you encourage first? And then talking more about loan companies, do you think that they're more forgiving now in terms of applying for these loans? Because, for example, I'm thinking to myself, when I bought my first house, at the time, I happened to be on hiatus for like a month or so from my series. I knew exactly when I was going back.
Right.
You know, it so happened that it worked out that way. So I was on unemployment for like that month. And while I was applying for that loan, they said that they couldn't count that as income. So they couldn't use that to calculate everything. So we just ended up waiting a month until I went back to work, whatever. But like right now, a lot of people are counting on that unemployment as their source of income. Do you think that that will be a viable option for these companies, or?
I think it's going to depend, right? I think it's going to depend. I wish that there was sort of a one size answer for that. I mean, I am always really, it makes me angry how so many lenders refuse to understand our lifestyle, right? Like the creative lifestyle.
Robots that have no idea there's a pandemic.
Exactly. And we the same, like buying our first home and then refinancing. And it's always like jumping through so many hoops. But we have over the years gotten clearer about lenders who are far more understanding, right? So let's just first, in terms of what you asked, right? Yeah. I definitely feel that I'm asking people to get really clear on how much do you need, let's just say, for the next 8 months, right? So getting clear on that number, okay? So I'm just going to make stuff up for now, but let's say I need $5,000 a month for the next 8 months, right? That means I need that means I need $40,000, okay? So I have that number, $40,000. So then what I would do is I would calculate how much income can I reasonably count on, okay? And so first, is any of my employment continuing, okay? So I want everybody to know I'm going to list the questions, and I understand that many of our answers are no, but I still want to ask the question because I want everybody, your answer might be yes. So is any of my employment continuing? If so, how much can I reasonably count on over the next 8 months in income from that? Okay, next piece. How much in a stimulus check, right? Did I qualify for that stimulus check? And do I have any children, dependents, right? So what was that amount? Okay. Then unemployment, right? Looking at the extra $600 a week at this point through July 25th, and then unemployment or PUA through December 31st, how much will that be, right? So I total all of those things up and I subtract them from the $40,000, right? And now I'm left with still whatever amount of money I need. So then I'm going to look at my savings, right? So that's where I'm going to see, do I have any savings at all, right? And if I do, I would subtract that as well, right? And remember, for savings here, I'm even looking at savings you may have designated for something like taxes. But we're going to say that's, if I need to, that's a loan I know I can get. I know I can get a loan from the IRS for my taxes. So I'm going to count that money. Okay. So if I have any savings, I subtract that.
Okay.
Now, essentially, I've got a number that I'm left with, right? So to me, the next place is family or friends. Do I have any family or friends in a position to either give a gift or to make a loan? Right? So we've been talking about this in our community. People who are in the position to help may really be willing to help right now. And those of us who need to ask have to be able to ask and receive in this time, even if that is something that's generally quite hard for us, right? And so, and remember, it doesn't have to be a gift. Like, but at this point, interest rates are really low right now, right? Anyone who has money sitting in a savings account, they are at most getting 1.5% interest APR, right? So if someone is in the position to make a loan to you at a 2% rate, right? And to work out, you can go online and work out a repayment plan. I would be suggesting that you ask for a year's grace, right? So that we can sort of get through this time, and then set up a payment plan for a 2-year or a 3-year payment plan. Okay. So friends and family, just because the chances of arranging a loan that would be, not a prohibitive interest rate would be great. So now, essentially, after we've gone through all of those things, now we're at the place where we have to look at borrowing, right? From a formal source, okay? So what we want to do at this point is essentially look at our lowest interest possibility of borrowing. And that's where it is going to be individualized for everybody. Obviously, if you have real equity in your home, I would try there. I would be looking at the credit unions, particularly the entertainment focused credit unions, because they are going to have much more of an ability to look at your work track record, to look at your credit score, to really understand. Understand.
Yeah.
So I would look at the credit unions. We have definitely found Quicken Loans. I think they're now Rocket Mortgage. We have found them to be fairly understanding and willing to look at your whole picture. So there's that. But then you also, the credit unions for personal loans. I would look at the credit unions for personal loans, even if you don't have a mortgage or anything like that, that you could be looking at getting a home equity line of credit. Talk to your credit cards, right? Are they willing to give you an additional credit? At what interest rates, right? And this is where I think it's going to probably come down to your credit score at this moment. So generally when applying for personal loans, they're not really looking at proof of employment.
Gotcha.
It largely is, what's my score? What's my credit history?
Because that's an of your financial history.
Exactly. And so I feel like that's kind of it's the last place that we get to, like along the steps. And many of us are going to have to explore debt, loans, what, right? And so it just becomes a mathematical question of what is the best interest rate that I can borrow this money at. And we need to be kind to ourselves, and whatever the best is that we can get, if it is an outrageous interest rate, again,
gotta do it.
We have to do what we have to do. Yeah. And then as time goes on, we will fix it, right? Yeah.
I've been hearing from some people who have been talking to their landlords who were talking about suspending their rent or even their mortgage, and they said, okay, but you'll owe it back in a lump sum once this is over. Which
is not a lump sum.
Okay.
It is not. So you will owe it, right? But my understanding is that once the disaster is declared over, right, you will have, I believe it's a minimum of a year to pay back what you owe. So everybody has to look at your state and what they've mandated. But you should have up to a year to pay that back. So it absolutely will not be a lump sum. And that may be them trying to intimidate you a little bit. Right. Now, if you have a mortgage, definitely I would be reaching out to the lender and simply asking, do they have a plan in place where you can have the mortgage tacked on to the end of the loan?
Got it.
Right.
And finance that loan essentially?
Yes. So essentially what you would be doing is, some of the lenders may have plans in place where it's not an official refinance. It's essentially, we're giving you a month or 2 months of grace, and we are tacking that payment on to the end of the loan.
So the takeaway is to really just explore your own personal options with your landlords, with your credit cards, and writing this all down and finding out what works best for that number that you need.
You need. And it's where I always say, right, we have the choice to operate in a place of pain or in a place of power, right? And operating in pain usually means we're being driven by our emotions, which is so understandable because we are feeling a lot of emotions right now, right? But the only way we can operate from a place of power is by gathering as much clarity as we can, right? And money is a thing, and this is really the reason why I started doing what I do, because money is a thing that even when we're not in a global pandemic, we have a tendency to hide, right? Like to just, oh my gosh, can I just put my head in the sand and pretend it'll be okay? And that never works. Like it doesn't ever work.
Yeah, right.
And it most definitely will not work now, right? So really what I'm saying is whatever support we need, even if we need to buddy up, right? And we will say, all right, we're both getting on the phone this morning and we're not hanging up until we have spoken to every single one of our lenders, and we're just going to keep taking deep breaths. We're just going to keep getting the information about what options exist, and we're going to stay in communication, right? Don't let people bully you, but just, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, so how do we make this work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say to someone who is going to ask for that credit increase, or they're going to ask for that that extra loan? Would you suggest that they try to maximize that number as much as they possibly can, or to stay in a more reasonable, realistic amount to keep those payments low? So for example, someone was able to get a personal line of credit for, they qualify for like $100,000 and they just want to pay off their debt or something like that. And that's going to have a payment of, I don't know, just putting out a number, $500, $600, something like that a month.
Right.
I guess it just depends on their income, but would you suggest trying to just max that to have that security blanket, or to just really focusing on what you need?
Well, it's really going to depend on what kind of loan you get, right? So for instance, if you were to get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, right?
Yeah.
You are only going to be charged monthly on the amount you've used. So if I have a $50,000 HELOC, right?
Yeah.
I don't get charged interest until I start using that money. So it's essentially like in an account that I have access to. So I would absolutely say you want the HELOC that they will allow you to, that you'll qualify, right? Because why go out and try and get a $20,000 one to then have to go out and try and get another one later, right? So if they'll give you 50,000, let's take 50,000. But we're going to use it extremely carefully as your credit card. I want the maximum available credit they will give me, right? First of all, I want the maximum available credit they'll give me because that increases my credit score, right? So if I have used, let's say I have a $5,000 limit on my credit card, and I've used 3,000 of that 5,000, right? If they bump my credit, available credit, up to 8,000 or 10,000, my credit score will go up because I will have used less of what's available, right? And so I want all of my cards to give me more credit. And that's the other thing, just to draw back to what you were saying before. When you're calling your card companies to ask what plans they have in place, right? Even if right now you don't need it, I would be asking, you know, I've been a great customer. Can I have an extension on my credit line, right? Because them doing that will bump up my credit score, which then means if I go to the credit union to try to take out a personal loan, I have a higher credit score when I go out to try to take out that personal loan. So these are all things that we can be doing to think ahead a little bit. So like someone asked me on a call last week, they said, I have some friends who are offering me a loan, right? And she was very cautious, you know, I don't want to borrow from friends. But she said, but what about going to the credit union? And essentially what I said is, I want you to do two things. I want you to accept the loan from your friends, right? Because they are willing to give, and I want you to be willing to receive. So I want you to do that. But then I also want you to go open an account with the credit union, not a loan. If you don't already have a relationship, open an account with the credit union. Maybe deposit that gift from your friends, deposit that loan into the credit union bank. So let's start building a relationship with the credit union so that if 3 months from now, I do actually need a loan, I'm not walking into the credit union total stranger and being like, oh, could I have a loan?
Yeah, that's such great advice. I never even thought about that, but that's true. They really do reward existing customers. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but this is something that I've been wondering, and I don't normally look too much into in terms of credit scores and increasing your credit score and keeping an eye on that. Say you are working towards increasing that so that in a few months' time you're in a better position to take out a better loan just in case. How long approximately does it take for your credit score to go up significantly or even to go down significantly? Do you know that?
Well, it varies. But it happens pretty fast based
Okay.
on your activity, right? But there are only certain things we can do. Like, I definitely am a little worried right now because there are a lot of predatory people out there, you know what I mean? And like trying scams, and it's like, oh, let us
Yeah.
bump up your credit score. And so, guys,
Yeah.
like, basically, there are very basic ways that I can increase my credit score. And at this point, for most of us, it is going to be things like how much of my credit I've used and how much
Right.
credit I have available, right?
Right.
So if I'm not in a position to be paying my credit down significantly, which most of us probably aren't because we're sort of holding on to our money, then the other way to shift this equation is to get them to give me more credit on my existing accounts, right? So that would be a way. Please, no one close any credit cards right now that you have. Do not close them. That'll hurt your credit score, right? If you're sitting on any cards that you are not using and you're like, this is for an emergency, I want you to start putting something on the card. Not carrying a balance, but like, get your Netflix bill on that card. Do something on the card and then pay it off every month. Because I don't want the card company to be like, start closing people's accounts who are showing no activity, right? So don't sit on a card without using it. Use it, pay it off. Use it, pay it off. Okay.
Got it. Question about, just for anyone who might be in this position where, you know, they haven't had income for a while. Maybe they were laid off or haven't had a gig even before this.
Right.
Maybe they haven't even worked much in 2020. And now they're in a lot of debt. What are your thoughts about debt consolidation services?
Right. Okay. This one's a little bit of a tricky one, right?
Okay.
And there are, I do want people to know that there are some free resources on my website, and people can email me if they need help finding their way to them, because there's some articles about debt that just are going to go a little more into detail than we're going to be able to right now. But people use the term debt consolidation, really use it a lot, and it means some different things. Okay. So the thing is that if I have a lot of debt, the simplest way for me to consolidate it would be if I could get a single loan, or I could get a single credit card at a lower interest rate with enough available credit that I could transfer all of it to that one card or transfer all of it to the one loan. But the problem, right, is that usually once I'm in debt trouble, no one is going to give me a loan. Turns us towards formal debt management plans. And there are formal debt management plans called DMPs. And, you know, I'm very honest about this. Many years ago, I was in massive credit card debt, over $80,000 worth of credit card debt. Yeah. Okay. So massive credit card debt. And I went on to a DMP, which is a formal debt management plan. You pay every penny of what you owe, but you pay it at a lower interest rate. The issue, right? The issue is, do you have enough income right now to cover the payments on a debt management plan, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, we have to dive deeper in terms of where people are, whether, right? Because if I don't have income, I can't go on a debt management plan because I actually need to continue going into debt, right? So it's where it's painful, but we just have to really look at what is so, right? Now, if we are looking at something like bankruptcy, then we need to consult with an attorney to look at our options for bankruptcy. But again, we have to make sure that once I file bankruptcy, I have the means to handle my needs, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm going to lose access to all of those credit cards once I file bankruptcy.
Right. So I think the one, the one misconception that maybe I have with DMPs is that by going that route, it severely hurts your credit score. Is that true?
Well, again, right? Yes and no, because here's the thing. If I have a lot of debt, as I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
My credit score, it becomes an ego thing, right?
Yeah.
So when I was $80,000 in debt, I had a credit score of about 760. Really high credit score, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So your
Yeah.
credit score does not necessarily have anything to do with how well you are doing money, right? Your credit score has to do with how well you have played the credit game up until that point.
That
right?
is so interesting and such an amazing nugget of information.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was still paying my bills. But I had $80,000 worth of credit card debt. Now, when I went on the DMP, my score probably dropped about 140 points. So it dropped to about 600. Okay. However, I then, over the next 5 years, paid all 80,000 worth of debt, right? So this is not settlement, which is something that I really want people to stay away from. This is, you're paying what you owe. You're just paying it at lower interest rates. Okay.
Gotcha.
So by the time I finished, my credit score was over 800. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I think some of us are hanging on, oh, my credit score, my credit score. I needed to face, I had a mess that I had to clean up, right?
Yeah.
And my credit score needed to take a hit to clean up the mess. But in cleaning up the mess, I rebuilt my credit score, right?
Wow.
So I just feel we're sometimes too attached to it.
We are.
What did I need my credit score to be over 700 for while I've got $80,000 worth of debt? There's I can't buy a house. I can't. So I need to get my life in order and not worry so much about the credit score, right?
Yeah. That was fascinating information. Okay. So let's talk about income. That's obviously the overall goal, to having more money, and to paying off debt and all of the great things. You know, some actors might, specifically talking about actors, since that's a lot of the people viewing right now, some actors might be able to rely on unemployment, especially with that increase, for a while, but some might not, because they have a higher base salary and higher bills and things like that, and now they're at this lower rate. So a lot of people are trying to think outside the box and figuring out ways to make income that's more than what is given to them by the government. And a lot of people are starting new businesses, whether it's online or finally opening up that Etsy shop that they've been thinking about. And now they're time, so they're going to do it. Is there any sort of overarching advice that you would give for people who are thinking about opening up a business or starting a business to take into account?
Yeah. So first of all, I feel like if there are blessings, and we have to find the blessings, right? This is one of them, because what it is forcing us to do is to recognize that we have to be creative in terms of how we earn money. And the truth is that whenever I am dependent on a single source of income, I am not secure, right? And we as a community have overwhelmingly allowed ourselves to basically rely on single sources of income, or my acting and whatever job that I hate, but I'm willing to sort of suffer through, right? We've sort of locked ourselves into this little box of how we are willing to earn. And I think long before this pandemic, that did not allow us to be existing in the full power that we absolutely have as a community. Like, I am sorry, but we are some of the most talented, creative, powerful, exciting, dynamic people. So why we're like, I can only earn this way is really, we have to start thinking about that. So I think, yes, now is a time to be truly saying, what are all of the ways that I have the ability to be of service, right? Because I think if we approach it from that way, if we just shift, not how can I earn money today, right? How do I have the ability to be of service? How do I have the ability to impact people's lives, right? That will really get you thinking about because the more we can be of service, the more possibilities there are for generating income into our lives. If I am solely focused on what can I do right now to make money, do you see how it kind of creates this tightness, right? That puts this enormous amount of pressure on what it is that I'm going to do. If I start thinking about, what are the ways that me, right, or you, each individual can serve, then it like feels lighter, right? It like feels more open. And that's the space from which we want to work. That is that what we have to start doing is we have to be willing to find ways to share our gifts. And we have to find ways to creatively share those gifts, right? Are you a teacher? What are the ways that you can create some dynamic content online?
I need some preschool content over here. So.
Right? And isn't that the truth? There are literally millions of parents who never considered homeschooling, who are homeschooling right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, I think the problem with actors is they're so focused on our own community who is so hurt by this, which is true. And certainly there's a lot of people affected by this. And a lot of people are out of jobs, but there are still a lot of people working virtually and who are still getting paid by their companies, and who are spouses or themselves are essential workers, and those people are still spending money. They are looking for ways to make their quarantine experience an easier experience or a more pleasurable experience for themselves, and to figure out how you can lean into that.
Exactly. Yeah, we often think that everybody is exactly how we are, right?
Yeah.
And it's also a fear thing because I'm more comfortable talking to my people, right, than putting myself out there. But I think it is going to be that willingness to put yourself out there. And it is going to be that willingness to really start talking, to really start sharing, genuinely sharing what you're up to, what you're able to offer, asking people what their needs are, being willing to ask those questions, being willing to allow this to be a time of growth for yourself, right? Because I have students who right now are saying, you know what? I'm going to start taking those coding classes, those web design classes, because I will tell you something, our web designer, he is so busy. He is working not just for our company, but for he is absolutely still bringing in income.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I was going to say, my mom is a web developer, and I can't even go over and spend time with her, like on her patio from a distance, because she's so busy.
She's
like, I haven't, yeah, she's like, I haven't been this busy in years, which I was kind of surprised by. And she's like, everybody's wanting to go online. And there are so many great online classes right now to learn coding, to learn web developing. Many of them, a lot of them are free. You'd be surprised what you can learn from YouTube. And a lot of them are discounted right now. You know, so I definitely think that those are all great things to think about.
And I'm seeing something that just popped up. Yes, but how do we organize ourselves to do what you're suggesting, right? And so I'm not 100% sure whether they're talking about like organizing their time or organizing, you know, I'm not 100% sure, but I do feel that that's a really, it's an important question, right? Because I think that there's a lot of feeling out there right now that, well, you've got all this time, go to work, right? But I also feel like, yes, and we feel a certain way right now. We feel a bit beaten down. We feel, right? So I'm not talking about, I want everybody up at 8 o'clock and I want you working all day on your new business. I'm not talking about that. But what I would say in terms of, I'm just trying to think of some initial, very concrete steps, right? I would ask people to really make a list of the things, the talents they have, the ways they feel they can be of service, right? I would also encourage people to make a list of people who you can talk to, who's your tribe and your connections through your tribe, right? For getting some advice and suggestions about what do you think if I offered this, or how might you format it? Do you know any parents who, what do you think they would be interested in, right? And trying to put together your offerings. I do think that we need to be more accountable with regards to our time. So what I would say is give yourself kind of a 2-hour block every day that is going to be about the expansion of business opportunities, right? There's some reading. So I would also suggest, guys, again, if you want to email me or I can send you some lists, there's some books and podcasts that I would suggest that people listen to start to generate ideas. And understand, right, that the journey from where you are right now to having a business that is generating some income, it is a road, right? It's a road. And so it really is going to be about creating that map and recognizing that as we take steps, more will reveal itself in terms of what I need to do next. Right?
Yeah, and I think he was also saying in terms of, you know, being an LLC versus a sole proprietor, I assume that goes along with all of the reading, kind of doing the research to see what that fits in with you.
But also, we don't need to do any of that right now, right?
Okay.
Like, that's a lot of like the structure stuff that we can get caught up in that keep me from like actually doing the work of, let me figure out what people want and what I can offer, right?
Okay.
Right now, it's about creating some service, a service, right? And starting to play with testing it, trying it out, right? Talking to people, being willing to be of service for no money, understanding that that's how you start getting feedback, right? There are no magic solutions. There aren't, right? But my corporate structure and all of that stuff, we can worry about that significantly later. What I will say is track every penny you spend on building a new business. And of course, track every penny that you earn in terms of getting a new business started. and all the structure stuff we'll figure out later.
Yeah. Some other things that I just wanted to throw out there right now. I know a lot of people are making, and some are just doing that to donate them to hospitals and those in need, which is just amazing. And there are a lot on Etsy. The demand is so high, and the demand for antibacterial, which there are so many like recipes for on YouTube, is so high. Out of curiosity, I really needed some hand sanitizer, and I went on Etsy, and all of these small shops were sold out. I couldn't find it anywhere. So I just, it might be hard to get those ingredients, but not to be overwhelmed or intimidated by those smaller shops, because if there's a high need globally, you'll be able to find success.
We talk ourselves out of things really easily, right? We talk ourselves out of things. Oh, there are too many people doing that. Try not to talk yourself out of before you've even begun, right?
Yeah. Really quick, because I want to talk to you about Abundance Bound, and we're running out of time, but I did have one quick question before we get there. People who are working from home right now because their offices have gone virtual, or because their business has gone online, or they're starting a new business. I've heard a lot of things just from colleagues and other actor friends about what they can write off right now because they're working at home office. Like, can they write off the meals that they DoorDash? Things like that.
Not really, no, right? So first of all, we don't know. We don't know at the end of the day, right? Law is being tested in new ways right now. But we've never been able to write off all of our business meals, even those of us who work from home all the time, right? But keep your records for what you're spending directly tied to your work. And we'll figure that out as the laws decide.
Cool. I'm getting the countdown from Instagram, so I really want to hear, you have such an amazing program that people just rave about. And I just was wondering if, like, in a minute and a half, you can just give me a quick rundown of what that class is and what it's like.
Absolutely. So, okay, very, very quickly, there are a couple of places that you can work with us. So first of all, I definitely point everybody to abundancebound.com. And what you'll see is our site is being redeveloped right now. And so it'll guide you to where you can get all the information. But I want people to look at our financial empowerment program, okay? Because that is where we are absolutely committed to delivering services at an incredibly low price. And what I'll do is I'll do a coupon, because it's $25 a month. That's what it is. And we pack in the value. But what I'm going to do is I'll get a coupon to you so that people can join if they want to for $20 a month. Does that feel fair? Right? So we so much support in there. Also, anybody in the entertainment industry, the Actors Fund, such a remarkable organization. I'm the financial wellness consultant for the Actors Fund. I want people to look at what classes we offer. They